Hey, welcome everybody. We're back again with Beat Your Addiction podcast. Little rusty because it's been a whole year since we've done this show.
Oh my goodness.
Since 2024. First show of 2025. And John Giordano, I'm your co-host, Scott Jones. But John, looking forward to the new year. You did so many things in 2024. Got involved with JC, did this, did that, did all these other things. What's 2025 have in store for you?
I'm working on some projects and soon to be spoken about until they happen. Maybe possibly what I began, which we're going to get into what that is also.
Okay.
I'm working on doing my best to get to the government and change the way we're doing treatment. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Why there's only an 8 to 10% recovery rate with people seeking treatment for addiction and mental health. You know what's really interesting? Would you go to a surgeon, a heart surgeon, to get operated on? The guy only has an 8 to 10% success rate.
Well, I mean, that's a good point.
I mean, you will die from a heart attack or a heart surgery if the guy only has an 8 to 10%. Your chances of dying are really 90%. Okay.
I mean, they expect better success rates from weathermen, and weathermen are wrong most of the time, and they still want better than
addiction, okay, can kill you also. So
yeah,
we're going to go into it. If you really, guys, stick around with this podcast because you're going to learn a lot of things. And I don't want you to believe one word I tell you, and I always tell people this. Go look it up. Check it out. Okay? Be your own advocate. All right, we're here to give you information. All right, nothing's cut in stone. So let's get to it.
But before we start, I want to remind everybody, take this moment, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share this show with your friends.
And that's important.
This is really important.
This is important stuff.
So, John, let's take it back. You said 8 to 10% success rate.
Yeah,
so
well, that's a fact. That's not me.
That's a fact. And you're not talking about derelict treatment centers. You're talking about all treatment centers.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if it's $100,000 a month or $5,000 a month.
Yep.
It's why.
Well, you know, and people claim they have a 60%, 70%. Listen, if it's not a third party doing it and they're doing their own outcome studies, I would take that with a grain of salt. Okay?
John, that's a big problem because some people think success is, well, listen, they don't do heroin anymore. They're smoking crack, but they're not doing heroin, so that's a success.
Well, you know, and also you got to couch what that means. A success, completing treatment, success for a year. There's a lot of variables here. But let's get into not only why there is an 8 to 10% recovery, but how we can possibly help that and improve those outcomes.
All right, that sounds good. So
let's look at step one. Step one, you have to realize you have a problem, of course, right? And whether someone does an intervention on you, you get arrested and you decide to go to treatment, or you want to get your family off your back, whatever reason you come to treatment for, you're going to be there. But before you go to treat for a treatment center, you got to go to a detox center. Now, they call this detox. It is not detox. These are stabilization units. Detox means to detoxify, not put drugs in. Okay? So let's look at the journey. You go to detox. Let's say it's alcohol. It might be 5 days to 7 days. If it's opioids or opiates, it might be 7 to 9 days, depending on the severity of the illness.
And the whole process of detox is about making sure you're physically stable, physically okay. It's not about the therapy and all that.
Your blood pressure is normalized. You're physically okay to go on to the next journey. But here's the interesting part. They may put you on different medications. They might put you on Valium. They might put you on Suboxone. They might put you on methadone. They might put you on all kinds of different medications. All right? I'm not here to judge whether they're bad or good. I'm just going to tell you what the story is. So let's say you're on whatever drug it is. You come out, drugs actually mess with your brain. Okay. So now you come out of treatment. You're still on drugs because you're on their drugs that they took you off your drugs. All right. So your mind is a little clouded. Okay. You have all the behaviors of your addiction. You don't trust anybody. You're highly manipulative. You don't want to go to a treatment center that you don't know anybody. You don't even know what treatment is, or whatever the story may be. You wind up going to treatment. Okay. So you go to treatment. They give you a psychological profile. They do a psychosocial on you. They figure out what kind of drugs you're doing, what kind of treatment centers you've been to before, what's your history, okay, what's the pathology that you exhibiting, okay, I'm depressed, I have anxiety, and then they put you on medication. Well, here's the funny part, and it's not even funny. If you stop drugs and alcohol, you're going to be depressed for at least a couple of weeks. Now, you might already have depression and anxiety, and that's what you may have been medicating with the drugs and alcohol. But some people, not all people, don't have depression and anxiety to an extent where they need to be on medication.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
That's because dopamine and serotonin, those are the feel-good drugs that you manufacture naturally, all right, are crashing because you was artificially stimulating them with drugs. Okay, once your body normalizes again, then we could see where people really are at. Okay, they may or may not suffer from depression and anxiety. Okay, now some of the reasons, what happens is it's supposed to be a medical model treatment, but it's not. It's a psychological model. And why do I say that? Well, if drugs and alcohol damage your brain, talking to the brain, I don't think heals the brain. Okay? So we have to look at it that way also. Talk therapy is important. Trauma therapy is important. Inner child therapy is important. These are all therapeutic interventions that are important. I don't want to minimize anything. But if we're only going to talk to the head, why don't we just send the head to treatment and let's leave the body home? I mean, if the body doesn't count for anything, why are we bringing it to treatment?
John,
it's connected to the head. Oh, okay, so we have to bring it.
John, you're getting dangerously close to describing what holistic medicine is supposed to be.
Right. Okay, so we're not looking for causation. We're looking for symptoms, and we're treating symptoms, okay? If you're using drugs and alcohol for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and your brain's damaged, which nobody's going to argue with that, okay, what the heck is a 30-day treatment going to do? Okay? Not much, unless you really, really want to change. But not many people really, really want to change because they're scared. They don't believe they can. They're not sure what's going to happen if they do. So on and on and on and on. So 30 days is really too short of a time, but the insurance companies don't want to pay for more. Now, they'll pay for outpatient or PHP for another 30 days or 40 days or 60 days. But people that are on drugs and alcohol don't have the stability to not go and reach out and get drugs to medicate their emotional states. So they really need to be in treatment longer. Anywhere from 60 to 90 days, okay, in treatment, where the body and the brain starts to heal somewhat, to get stabilized enough to think clearly, or somewhat clearly, okay? But if you take them from residential program for 30 days and throw them into an outpatient program, now they can go wherever they want, okay? And if they start getting an emotional bout with the significant other, their family members, they lose their job or whatever happens, they don't know how to, addicts don't know how to handle this. So what are they going to do? They're going to reach for a medication.
John, you've done therapeutic sessions with clients in the past and many different things that you do. That 60, instead of 30 days, having 60 or 90 days, that helps the therapist as well to not just uncover issues, but deal with them. 30 days is not enough time to dig into somebody's life therapeutically, right?
Let's look at it from common sense approach.
All right.
I come out of detox. I'm still wheeling and reeling in my brain. I'm still in emotional mayhem. I'm going to a strange place where people are telling me when to get up, when to go to sleep, what to do. I don't trust anybody because I'm not trustworthy. I can't connect with anybody. My brain is out to lunch. So maybe in 2 weeks, maybe you bond with a therapist. You connect with that person. So you start to unravel some of the therapeutic craziness that you've been going through. But then in 2 weeks, you got to leave. And then you go to outpatient. They send you to a different group of therapists. Okay? Now you don't know that person. And now you're still dealing with all of the stuff that's going on in your brain. So it's kind of like a planned failure. So people say, well, what's the difference between 60 and 90 days? Okay, I'm going to tell you. There is a program called the Physicians Referral Network. That's where doctors who use drugs, get caught, or turn themselves in, go to this program. Now, this program is a 90-day inpatient program with a 5-year aftercare program. Now, the pushback is, well, they're afraid to lose their license. Yeah, true. But let's say instead of a 90% recovery rate, which they have documented, we only get a 20% recovery rate with that methodology. Do you realize an extra 10%, how many millions of lives that we're going to save?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm telling you, it's going to be higher. Okay. But I'm just taking low end. All right. So let's look at what we can do to help the process. Okay. Where you need to call your senator, you need to call people in government. We need to tell people that, hey, and insurance companies, they're not too swift either. Okay, because I have an insurance card. I go to Johnny's detox. I come out, I relapse. I go to Harry's detox. This time I make it through and I go to a treatment center. I come out of there, or I leave in a week, and I go to another treatment center event. So I'm hopping around to all these treatment centers. I got a golden ticket. Okay, it's called 3 Hots in a Cot. The money that the insurance companies are spending is astronomical.
Right.
So from a business point of view, I understand that. But let's look at how to save them money and improve treatment outcomes. Well, real simple stuff. They go to treatment for 60, 90 days, depending on the severity of the illness. That's step 1. Step 2, let's say they come out, they should relapse. Let's say they relapse. You bring them back in for 2 weeks to stabilize, right? If they relapse again, they can't use that insurance policy for at least a year. They're going to have to go to a public program, all right? So that's an incentive, and also that saves the insurance companies money from them hopping around.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's just an idea. Throw it out there to your senators and stuff. But let's go to the things that insurance does not cover, that there is science. Oh, they always remember something. Pharmaceutical companies got their hand on everything. And, we always need more research and stuff. Oh, we always need more research. And it's like Stupidville, if you want to know the truth. Okay? Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, there's a lot of papers on it. Okay? It's used for the bends. When people go diving, they come back up and they get nitric in their blood and they have to get rebalanced, okay, their body in a chamber, okay? We know that it does wound healing. We know that it stabilizes people that scuba diving and they come up, okay, if they stay down too long. We know that. And we now know that it works with traumatic brain injury cases. Well, I believe that if I do, and I'm a recovering addict, and I do drugs and alcohol, I have brain injury. Maybe not as dramatic as someone else, but at some level, I have damage. So if I have damage, my brain is not functioning at capacity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if you do hyperbaric medicine, okay, oxygen under pressure becomes a medicine, and it can heal the brain. They use it for wound healing in the hospitals, but they don't use it for healing the brain, which is kind of foolish.
John, even the NFL figured that out. When players get injured playing football, they have hyperbaric chambers. They put their players in, and they're healing their arms, their legs,
and people
concussions.
With
they're healing these things faster.
And people with depression, and it does wound healing. Now, I know for a fact it does wound healing because I'm a judo guy and a karate guy, and I had a judo injury, and I had to get operated just about almost a year and a half ago, 2 years. I had 43 staples from my neck down my back. I have 14 screws in my neck, and I have 2 rods. And I told the doctor, the neuroscience is one of the top scientists in Mount Sinai Hospital, that hyperbarics, and I do red light therapy, and it actually increases the healing by 50%. Oh, okay, John, don't worry. Just do what you have to do, but let's see what happens. So I go back to take my staples out, and he's looking at me. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Your back is healing really quick." I said, "I told you what I'm doing." He said, "Okay, let's see what happens." So I go back 17 or 20 days later. He looks at my back and he starts pulling people into the office and going, "Look at this. 30 years I've been doing this. I've never seen anybody heal like this." I said, "Doc, I told you I do hyperbarics and I do red light therapy." Okay. He says, "Well, if I would never believe this unless I saw it with my own eyes."
Wow.
So that's personal experience, guys.
I mean, I think most of us can understand the idea of oxygenating the body, the blood. It's like putting Miracle Grow in soil. It gives you more to work with to heal and to do all that. It
also helps with infection. It helps with a lot of things.
So we get the oxygen, but
how does the nutrients? It brings all the nutrients and all the healing to the area that's damaged. Red light therapy, there's all kinds of science on that. Helps with inflammation. Helps with a lot of different things. Even helps with growing hair. It does a lot of stuff, and they have research on that. Okay, but let's go a little deeper now.
All right.
Okay. What causes depression and anxiety? Now, if you talk to a therapist, they would tell you, early childhood trauma, people that have been molested, genetic, they're chemically imbalanced. There's all this stuff, right? Okay. Well, they're partially right about the chemically imbalanced. What we're not looking at is if you have a low thyroid, look it up, guys. If you have a low thyroid, check this stuff out in your own body. You can have depression and anxiety from low thyroid. If you have leaky gut syndrome or H. pylori infection, those are gut issues. Okay. You can have depression and anxiety. Look it up. If you have low testosterone or high testosterone, you can have depression and anxiety. If you have hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, you can have depression and anxiety. If you have closed head injuries, a lot of addicts fall, they're stoned, they get in car accidents, okay, you can have depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and behavioral problems. Okay? This is fact, guys. It's not me making this stuff up.
John, just the fact that you're putting drugs in your body can cause those injuries too. It doesn't have to be a fall down. It could be because of one too many doses.
So also, you want to look at heavy metal toxicity. Heavy metals. Look at Michigan. What was it, Michigan? That had the lead poisoning in the water?
Yeah.
Our water supply is not the greatest. Rice has arsenic in it. Some rice, okay? There's a lot of heavy metals in water and food and different herbs and stuff like that. It causes neural interruption in the brain. Your brain does not function right, and it can mimic attention deficit disorder and possibly look like bipolar disorder. Okay. So as you see what we're talking about, there are other co-contributing factors to mental health and addiction, okay, that cause the body to get out of balance or out of homeostasis. So what do we do? First of all, we get that stuff checked out. Now, how do we fix it? Okay. First of all, you need a gut test. Okay. Insurance companies don't cover this stuff. To see now they're finally saying, and I've been talking about this for over 20 years, the gut is now looked at as the second brain.
Right.
Most of serotonin and dopamine, that's the feel-good drugs that are in your gut that are manufactured. You have more neurons, go look it up, don't believe me, in your gut than you have in your brain. Now, you get serotonin and dopamine. If your gut's out of whack with all the bacteria, what happens is you don't make enough serotonin, enough dopamine, and then it goes up what is called the vagus nerve, okay? It's around your neck here. And your vagus nerve is a two-way highway where all of your serotonin and dopamine go up the vagus nerve and deposits it into your brain. So if your vagus nerve is out of whack, if your gut's out of whack, and you can test all of these, unfortunately, insurance don't cover stuff like this, okay? To see if everything's out of whack so you can fix it. They have neurostimulators for your vagus nerve. You have probiotics and prebiotics and enzymes for your gut, and utilizing a proper diet, staying away from processed food and high sugar, fructoses, and all this other stuff. Eating a nice, balanced, healthy diet, not eating so much red meat and things of that nature, because it's shot up with hormones and antibiotics and all kinds of other stuff. You might want to look at grass-fed or, organic, things like that. These are some of the things that you can do to see what's really going on with your body. Okay? If you look at this whole process I just laid out for you, you want to get what is known as a micronutrient test. That shows you where you're deficient, where you're either getting too much or too little of certain nutrients, even though you take nutrients, okay? Also, you want what is known as a methylation test. Methylation means, I think it's Gary Brecker talks about it on Facebook. This sees if you're absorbing the nutrients you're taking, because you may not be absorbing, you may not be methylating them. Then we have to look at, since there's poor regulation on our nutrients, okay, we have to look at the first line of defense is if they're made under a GMP lab. That means it's a third party that's observing it. That may not be the best in the world, but at least it's something, because it's an unregulated industry. If you go to another level, you want to get a federal assay from the company on where they derive those nutrients from, what kind of fillers they used, okay? That's another level. When you do research, you get a molecular level on each nutrient in the compound to see if it has the same molecular structure that it has. So when you give it to different universities to do testing, you come out with the same outcome. So those are the levels of testing, okay? These things that I'm telling you, most people do not know. Some of the things you need to do for depression and anxiety, okay? Number one, okay, you need to exercise, okay? One of the best ways to exercise is called HIIT training, high intensity training, where you go all the ways up and then they give a rest period for 20 seconds. And you take it to an extreme and go down. Walking, okay? Swimming. We're not meant to sit around. We're meant to move, okay? Any person that has heart problems, they tell you to exercise, all right? When you wake up in the morning, the first thing you should do is drink a glass of water, because you dehydrate when you sleep. So there's a lot of things that you could do, okay, to actually help bring your mind and your body together. And another thing that you need to look at is spirituality. Finding a God of your understanding. being more spiritual in nature. Now, what does that mean? Learn to be kind instead of right. Do your best not to lie, cheat, or steal, or hurt yourself or another human being. Reach out and help people less fortunate than you. Take care of this gift that your Creator gave you, because what you do with this gift, this body, this soul, is your gift back to your Creator, whoever that may be for you. Some of the other things you can do cold plunge. Cold plunge helps with inflammation. That's where you sit in hot, cold water, okay, at least 50 degrees. All right? Also, it teaches you discipline and focus and how to maintain where you don't want to run out of the cold water, where you stay focused for at least 3 to 5 minutes. So it teaches you a bunch of other things, gives you strength, okay? Red light therapy helps with inflammation. Infrared saunas help with detoxification. These are some of the things you may want to consider to do. There are a lot of different things. And one of the other things that most people don't know, and when I heard about it, I laughed, it's called zombie cells. They go, what? Zombie cells, their medical term is senolyticals. That's cells that don't fully die, but they clog up the rest of the works in your body. Okay? So you have to get rid of those. And some of the research is showing that fiestin, F-I-E-S-T-I-N, quincentin, those two herbs, okay, help to clean out those zombie cells. Okay? There's still more research to be done. There's other things that they're looking at now in medications. Okay? There's so many things you have to look at with this body as a machine. It's like your car, all right? You got to change the oil. You got to change your tires, okay? You got to make sure you got enough fluid for your windshield. I mean, remember, there's a lot of things going on here, okay, that need to be looked at. Now, I know this seems like a big job, but you know what's a bigger job? Going to the doctors all the time, going to hospitals, going to all this. And even if you do all of this stuff, you can still wind up going to all these places. Okay? So, but not as much or not as bad. Okay? Get a checkup every 3 to 6 months. All right? Very important. Get blood work. See where you're at. See what's under the hood. Okay? Because when you have deficiencies in the body, it doesn't just affect one part. If this is a system, it affects everything. Like when they have the fires in California, with all that smoke is coming over to other places. What happens on one end of the world happens on the other end of the world. Okay?
I always get a kick out of people saying, "Oh, it's not going to affect me." I'm like, "Can you smell the smoke?" And they go, "Yeah." It said, "Then it's getting in you." If you could smell it, the odor doesn't come without shit attached to it. I mean, it comes over and it goes in you. I wanted to ask you something though, John. Two quick questions. First of all, you're not anti-medication. I don't want people to think that.
No.
I want to make sure you explain that.
Let me explain what I am. I'm for what works.
Yeah.
Now let's look at Suboxone. Okay, that's buprenorphine and naloxone. They put naloxone in there so addicts can't shoot it up. They use that and to detox people, and then they keep people on that as maintenance. Now, there's a small sliver of people that probably need to be on that because they're unconstitutionally not being honest and not wanting to get off drugs, and they're the ones that die.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not for everybody, okay? Because it is an opioid.
Yeah.
Okay? So what we did is now we gave it to everybody, okay? And then people are using other drugs while they're on that drug. So, I mean, we always go from one extreme to another extreme. And I laugh at it. And remember, Suboxone's an opioid, okay? That means it's a synthetic opiate. In the early 1900s, we had the Chinese came over with opium, and we had a morphine epidemic and all that. So the doctors came up with a way how to fix it, Scott. Oh, Let's give them heroin. Oh, we'll all know what happened with that. Okay. So we got to look at a little bit closer about how we do things. Now, let's look at how to fix the brain. Okay. We went into hyperbarics, we went into nutrients, we went into testing. Now let's go into, I'm one of the leading experts on psychedelic medicine. I work with a Dr. Deborah Mash, who's a neuromolecular scientist. She was the head of the brain bank and the Alzheimer's Foundation at the University of Miami School of Medicine. And as far as hyperbarics, I work with one of my mentors is Dr. Paul Harch. You can look him up. He's a neuroscientist at the University of Louisiana. And I also work with the geneticist who found the main addiction gene. Okay? That main addiction gene, which is called the DRD2-LE1 variant gene. Okay? Now, there's a whole other bunch of genes, but that is the main gene that they identified. Okay? Doesn't mean that you're definitely going to be an addict because you have that addiction gene, because there's such a thing as epigenetics, and epigenetics mean the social environment can change the gene expression. Okay? But there's a way to fix that too with what is known as, we have 15 papers on this, peer-reviewed scientific peer-reviewed journals with an amino acid compound that actually upregulates dopamine. Okay? And the way Dr. Blum looks at all this, and look Dr. Blum up, he's the geneticist, he's known all over the world. Okay? We look at addiction as RDS, reward deficiency syndrome. What does all that mean? Well, all the addictions, eating addiction, gambling, sex, drugs, alcohol, all of these addictions are seeking one or two things, serotonin and dopamine. That's what they're chasing. Okay? So they all have different methodologies and symptomatologies, but they all come together. All roads lead to Rome. So we want to fix that key component by raising that dopamine and serotonin. But the insurance companies don't cover that either.
And that's the next point I was going to make. All this is well and good, but it can be expensive to implement, and you're not getting the backing from the insurance companies to try these things. Right. Instead, insurance companies now are doubling down on MAT. They want people medicated because it's cheaper for them, and it brings money into the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, this is a big game. They're playing with lives here, buddy.
We're walking cash registers for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what we all need to understand is that you may not be able to do all of this, but at least you may be able to do some of it. And those of you who can do all of it, at least now you got a shot to take a look at this stuff. As far as detox goes, and as far as psychological approaches, psychedelic medicine, the one done under proper medical supervision, is an incredible tool. Now, we're giving people SSRIs like Zoloft and Prozac and Wellbutrin. Okay, I'm not against these medications, okay? But
when it's appropriate.
When it's appropriate. Yeah. But not only that, if it's working, fine, use it. If it's not working, which a lot of them work for a while, oh, take 10 more of these, 10 less of this. Oh, no, take this medication to help with that medication. And then you turn around, you're on 4 or 5 medications. You're numb, your sexual drive is gone, and you're walking around with anhedonia when you don't know, anhedonia means you really don't care about anything anymore. You don't even, the things you used to like, you don't even like anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So there are other things that you can do in this place, and people commit suicide in some of these medications. And they tell you these are some of the contraindications.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not just saying that, okay? And I'm not saying don't take them. I want to make that clear to everybody, okay? But what I am saying is that there are alternatives, okay, that may work for you. Nothing works for everyone. I want to make that clear, okay? Nothing works for everyone. We're all individual human beings, okay? You have Ibogaine. Ibogaine is a bush from West Africa that was used as a rite of passage from the Weedy tribe. Okay, a gentleman named Howard Lutzoff, who was a heroin addict, founded in 1962. All right, he wanted to get a new high. He went to Gabon in West Africa, did it, and all of a sudden he woke up the next morning detoxed, minimal post-acute withdrawal, and no cravings. He decided to open up a treatment center in Panama eventually. And when he did, years later, he got a hold of Dr. Mash. And Dr. Mash went there in Panama. They were treating people, getting great results, but they didn't get along for some reason. She left and she opened up a program in St. Kitts in 1996, and that's when I met her, and that's when I started working in St. Kitts with her. Since the government called it a Schedule 1 drug. Now, let me tell you what a Schedule 1 drug is. Schedule 1 drug means it has no medical benefit, and it's highly addictive. Well, I can tell you this. It is definitely not highly addictive, and it definitely has medical benefits. Okay? If you want to spend 8 to 12 hours in hell, okay, because what Ibogaine does, it brings you back into your childhood. To make it simplistic, it's a neural reset, but to make it simplistic, it brings you back into your childhood to visit your traumas. Who the heck wants to hang out with their traumas every day? You don't want to do that. It's not an addictive substance.
No, I divorced all mine.
Right. So, and what it does, it truly, it's a reset for your neurotransmitters in your brain. And we've seen hundreds, and I've treated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients that took Ibogaine and went to therapy. You need to go to therapy with this. But when they came out of the journey, what happens is this. We put a 24-hour heart monitor on to make sure, because you can have a problem with your heart if you don't know what you're dealing with. Okay, this drug has the propensity for that. Okay, so that's why you got to do thorough medical testing. Not an EKG, but a 24-hour heart monitor. Check your kidney function, your liver function, your whole head. We do blood work and everything that. We do toxicology tests to make sure what's on board. So this way it doesn't interfere with that plant medicine. Okay. Then we bring them to the island, which is what I used to do. We used to redo the test. Okay. We used to check their luggage because addicts always have a holdout. They want to get, in case they want to be uncomfortable, they want to take another hit.
Mm-hmm.
So we make sure that's not happening. Okay. We do an intake with them, all right, and we pick a focus, have an intent. An intent is very important when you do this medicine, okay? Then we would put them in a hospital bed. We put an IV in their arm in case there's any kind of event so we can take them out. We would do a heart monitor on them to make sure their heart is functioning properly. Then we put eye shades on them and a headset on them with music to keep them in a containment field. We would give them a test dose. We would wait 45 minutes to see how they tolerate. Okay, there would be a nurse by their bed. All right. And we would then give them a full dose and sent them on their journey. All right. Then they would come back out after about 8 hours, 10, 12 hours, depending if they're a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer. And then my job was to do integration therapy with them to see what they saw in their journey, since I'm a traumatologist also, okay, to see what they've seen in their visions and help them to figure out how it connects with their life. So how they can work through these issues. And then they go to therapy and they go to treatment. And they used to go to treatment at G&G with me. We had unbelievable outcomes. I'm not even going to tell you the number because you won't believe me anyway. That's how high it was. Okay? So these are something that government doesn't want here. I believe it's the pharmaceutical companies don't want it here because it's billions of dollars that they're going to lose with all these other medications they're giving people.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
Now, that's why you guys need to talk about this stuff. Okay? People die in detox, regular detox. They come in protein deficient, volume depleted, and very sick. So don't think they don't die in treatment. And don't think they don't die in some of those medications, because this happens. Not often, but occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you have to realize that these psychedelic plant medicine was put there, I believe, by the Creator for us to find and to work with under the right supervision. Unfortunately, there are people that are giving these people these substances. They mean well. They're do-gooders. Okay? But the problem is, if you don't know what kind of health they're in, if you don't know how their heart is, if you don't know what medications they're taking or what they're on, you can cause people to get either very sick or die. So it has to be done under proper supervision. I want to make that very clear. Even though you have all the best intentions in the world, intentions are not enough. You have to know what you're doing, with whom you're doing it with. So I want to make that clear. Now, there's other substances. There's psilocybin. People microdose with that. They do a full dose. Okay? When done properly, it can help people. It's helping with PTSD. Hyperbaric medicine also helps with PTSD. Ketamine can also help with PTSD. All of these things can really help. Okay? But we're not utilizing them, and we're not studying them enough. There are studies. We are doing all that. Okay? But there's pushback from the pharmaceutical companies. Remember, we're taking money out of their pocket. Okay? These substances work when done properly.
John, there's so many studies about the length of treatment as it relates to success. And we know that somebody who's in treatment for 90 days has a much higher success rate than somebody who's in for 30 days.
Absolutely.
So why is it so difficult for insurance companies to see the basic logic of do it once right instead of 10 times wrong?
I have my own theory on this, and this is terrible to say.
Just throw it out there. I mean, what the hell?
Why would you continue to pay for and condone a treatment that only has an 8 to 10% recovery rate? Well, over 100 addicts died last year. And if they're costing you money, isn't it better that they die?
Over 100,000.
Over 100,000.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, what better way to get rid of people?
By the time you get home for dinner tonight, John, 200 are going to die. That's how it works. 200 people during a 6 to 8 hour period die from.
What are we doing?
Does that save them money when they die?
Look, I'm not saying this is a cure-all, all this stuff for everything. Right. But man, if we just raise it up 5%, 10%, look how many lives we could be saving. I know it's much higher than that, but I'm going to go lowball. All right? I know what I'm talking about, boys, because I've done it. I'm 78 years old. I'm in great shape. Okay? Yes, I got other illnesses going on. I had cancer. I beat that. Okay? I got that surgery I told about. I beat that. And now the odd one of your part, I got an infection, and I got taking antibiotics. I went another place. It got healed and it came back. I had antibiotics. And I was dehydrated. I didn't realize I was drinking enough water. With all the stuff that I know, okay, doesn't mean that I did what I was supposed to do. Okay? Now I drink enough water, believe me. I carry a jug around with me.
Yeah, I see you with the jug now. That's cool.
I thought I was drinking enough water. I wasn't. Caused me to have kidney disease. And I'm fighting that with hyperbarics. I'm fighting it with all kinds of different things. NAD. NAD works with your mitochondria. Your mitochondria is The engine for every cell in your body, NAD, helps to repair the cells in your body, gives you energy. It's the fuel for your mitochondria. There are other things out like BBC 157, which is a peptide with TP 500, helps to heal tendons and stuff, which they banned, that you can't use anymore because for some reason or another, they don't want to do that. Okay. All this information you can look up. Okay. Look what I'm talking about. Investigate. This is your life. Okay. Remember, doctors are all learned from the same book. Some have different ways of looking at stuff. You might want to consider going to an alternative doctor or an integrative doctor, someone who's out of the AMA realm of looking at things. They're still doctors, but they went beyond what they learned. And they're looking at people holistically. What does holistic mean? Comprehensively. Holism. Okay? As a system, not just a piece that we're fixing. I hope this podcast gave you information. Please share it. Okay? I don't want you to believe what I told you. I just want you to investigate. And if you see what I told you was true, call your senator. Let's get this out there. We have a new group of people coming in the government. Let's see what they can do. All right. That's about it.
That is about it. I do have to ask you this before we close, though. Do you have hope that we'll get there?
I always have hope.
Okay. I know evidence to the contrary that seems like we're fighting an uphill battle. But
and if you want to know more,
there are a lot of good people out there trying to get this done.
That's right. Go to my website, Giordano.com. You can see some of my books that I've written. One book is A Kid from the South Bronx Who Never Gave Up. That's my life story. If you want to know more about me, How to Beat Your Addictions and Live a Quality Life. It's another book I wrote. Just go there and check it out. See some of the research that's on there. See some of the podcasts and things like that. I'm also a co-owner of JC's Recovery Center in Hollywood, Florida, that we have an executive program that does all the things I was talking about. But unfortunately, it's a cash model. It's not just insurance. We have our other model is all insurance, but we can't do all the things that we want to do that we know works. So we do what the basic stuff is. Plus, it's a faith-based program, and we get you in contact with a God of your understanding. That's called JC's Recovery Center. So I hope I imparted good information to you. I hope it helps you, and God bless you.
So check out JC Recovery Center. You can go to jcrecoverycenter.com to learn more about it. Give them a call at 844-524-6873. John and I will be back in a couple weeks with some more shows. Please remember, take the time. Share this with your friends. Like it and hit the subscribe button for the channel. We appreciate you being there. We appreciate you taking your valuable time to learn a little bit more about what goes on in addiction recovery. And we're here for you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to John at his website, or you can simply leave a comment under the show and we will see it. John,
okay,
it's been great.
We're in.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll catch you next time right here on Beat Your Addiction Podcast.
And never give up.
Never.